Okay. So welcome everyone for being here today for the Local Government Energy Reporting Workshop, um, put in part by the NCTCOG, SECO, and SPEER. A few housekeeping items. There is a sign-up sheet at the front over there where you entered. If you didn't already, or at some point before you leave, please sign in if you haven't already. Also, we'll be sending around in-kind form that you can use to donate the value of your time for an in-kind match that helps fund programs like this. Uh, on the online registration, there was an option to do that. So if you already selected yes, don't worry about having to sign in on that document again, going around. But if you're also not sure on what you selected and you'd like to do that, by all means, sign that form. Sean, I put the thing right there next to you. If you would push that down to get that going. And then also, all these slides and the presentation itself, the materials will be uploaded to the Conserve North Texas website. After this presentation, we'll also be sending an email out with the presentation and a link to the Conserve North Texas websites where the recording will be found. And then any additional resources that we'd like you to know about are also on that table back there. So please take a copy with you. Also not written here, but if you'd like to speak, if you have a question, the microphone's in front of you. Just press the little face with a couple of bars in front of it to activate the mic. The lights are turn red near the mic tip, and you should be able to talk. Then press that face again to mute yourself. The agenda also up there on the table. From now until 11:45 is when we plan to kick off this workshop. We'll have a short break in the middle of it for 5 minutes. And then after I go over a few more things, I'll pass it over to Sean, take the break, come back. Sean will continue talking about the workshop and the energy reporting requirements. Then a representative from SECO, Benjamin Tedley, will speak on a couple of SECO programs and just an overview about the organization itself. And then I'll close it out with a few closing remarks. So a little bit about the three of us. I'm sure the other two speakers will talk a little bit more about themselves and their organizations. But for NCTCOG, we are the regional planning agency for the North Texas region for local governments here, and we provide information on a variety of topics. The Regional Energy Management Project, which is what we do through SECO, is ongoing and is to identify energy management needs, increase awareness and to local governments on energy reporting requirements such as this one, and provide resources on a variety of topics assisting local governments in these energy conservation efforts. Then we have SECO partnering with local governments such as yourself, local schools, and institutions of higher ed, state agencies, and otherwise across the states to reduce your utility costs and maximize energy efficiency. And then we have SPEER, in their local government program supporting city energy management and facilitating sharing of best practices and energy efficiency, and strengthening these relationships among local governments through the City Efficiency Leadership Council, which if you're not a part of, I strongly encourage you to check that out. They have a lot of good resources there. Before we get into the workshop itself, just to highlight some upcoming transportation-specific items. Myself and a few of my colleagues being part of the transportation department here at the COG, we have some events, funding, and just other engagement opportunities that we want to bring to your attention. Coming up in February on the 26th, we have a DFW Clean City stakeholder input session where we're asking for your input on the design projects implementing alternative fuel transport technologies, including EV charging, infrastructure sites, autonomous robot delivery, and resiliency, and more topics. That's going to be here at the COG from 1 to 3 p.m. And then we have the save the dates for a webinar on heavy duty zero emission vehicles. That's going to be virtual, and it will be from March 25th through the 27th from 10:30 to 11:30. For both of these things, you'll be able to find more information and the actual registration on the DFW Clean Cities websites. The webinar itself is to showcase to you the available or provide information on the available zero emission, all electric and hydrogen class 6 and 7 vehicles. The goal of which is to provide the latest information on available heavy duty zero emission vehicles and help complement other investments awarded to the DFW region. Funding wise, we have the North Texas Diesel Emissions Reduction Project. 1.6 million is available through that, replacing older diesel vehicles with lower emitting versions of those. The application is now open, and it will be due on March 14th of this year. Eligible applicants include private sector fleets and public fleets. Projects can include Class 5 through Class 8 medium duty and heavy duty vehicles, highway vehicles, and non-road engines, equipments, or vehicles, as well as transport refrigeration units, SmartWay verified idle reduction tech for on-road highway vehicles, and locomotive engine replacements and locomotive shore power connection systems. There's a lot of information. I mean, this is going to be on the NCTCOG.org AQ funding page as well. Along with that, we have the clean heavy duty vehicles funding as well, 60 million available through that to purchase class 6 and 7 zero emission vehicles. That's expected to be available in spring of this year, with a call up for projects to open spring of this year. It can also fund eligible activities like EV charging infrastructure and hydrogen refueling stations for zero emission vehicles and workforce development activities. And then a few engagement opportunities. We have the annual fleet survey, which hopefully most of you are aware of. That's going to open up on January 24th of this year, and it's submitting the emissions reduction activities that you do at your local governments. Through that, we ask you to participate via the survey and adopt the Clean Fleet policy, and through that being eligible for various recognition awards. Those levels of awards ranging through bronze to gold, and then special awards being awarded for significant progress on meeting self-imposed goals. This survey tracks the region's progress on reducing petroleum and greenhouse gases, and the fleet's reports emission reduction activities such as alternative fuel and electric vehicle usage, idle reduction, and fuel efficiency improvements, and more. Then we have the regional EV infrastructure projects. We're seeking some feedback via the link there on the slide for charging sites across the region. Ourselves and TxDOT are seeking this feedback. TxDOT specifically created a map to allow residents to leave comments on their thoughts and concerns on the EV chargers anywhere in the state. And this is going to help us here at the COG implementing charging station projects. Additionally, well, the link is there on the slide. And then last but not least, we have our Charging Smart designation program. We have a cohort that we're starting up. It'll be the second time we do this, working towards EV-friendly designation. The deadline to sign up for that will be the 24th as well of this month. And we work alongside the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, IREC, to provide free personalized technical assistance, helping municipalities set um, EV readiness goals and potentially receive designation awards as well, like bronze, silver, and gold. Technical assistance is provided by both IREC and NCTCOG at each meeting and throughout the cohorts. And the cohort's set to happen in the coming months. That's pretty much it for that. Some upcoming related workshops and webinars specific to the SECO contract that we are a part of. We have an EV Ready Codes and Building Standards Roundtable that we are planning to happen in person, more than likely here at the COG, happening between late March and early April, and then an EECBG program showcase to be virtual and happening early May. More information on that coming through newsletters and emails and information on the Conserve North Texas website. Stay informed through upcoming events for environments and developments through our NCTCOG page there, and then transportation related through the DFW Clean Cities events page. All the links to emails and email lists and committee updates regarding energy and other topics can be found here on this page as well, and other NCTCOG resources through our various websites on energy-related matters through Conserve North Texas, Solar, Go Solar Texas, air quality improvements, transportation-related infrastructure, Clean Cities website there, and then energy management, efficiency, and renewable energy on the NCTCOG website at the link there, with an additional link to a recent funding newsletter that we posted for winter of 2025. Again, want to thank our sponsor, SECO. We receive funding through SECO to work on these energy management and efficiency projects for the region, and we provide webinars and workshops just like this, as well as technical assistance on a variety of topics relating to energy. Quick reminder for the in-kind donation form that's going around. We're just asking if you'd like to donate the value of your time. It helps us put together these workshops and webinars, and as part of the SECO contract, we have an in-kind match that we try to make. I'll pass it over to Sean.
Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us. I guess this will be my space since this is being recorded. I'm Sean Auckland. I am the senior government and program manager and community outreach. So I just got a new title, so it's just not quite rolling off my tongue just yet. I want to say a little bit more about SPEER because I'm all about transparency. Before I came to SPEER, I was in local government for about 15 years plus. I worked for Travis County. And so I did a lot of work on greenhouse gas inventory, sustainability initiatives internally, and policy work. And so I am very familiar with bureaucracy and then also how data creates change within bureaucracy. So I'm very excited, even though this is kind of a boring topic on energy reporting, but I'm very excited to share. And I'm also a person who invites questions. So when I'm going through my presentation, just raise your hand and I will pause and answer those questions. Of course, if we start going into time, I'll say, can you hold that for a second? And we'll come back to it. Also, full transparency, our organization, SPEER, it's short for South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our main funders are the Department of Energy, and as well as the sponsor for this workshop, the State Energy Conservation Office. We do have small funding from foundations, and we are a member organization, but that's not the biggest part that helps fund us as an organization. And then other aspects is that you might meet Randy Plumley later. We have several programs within SPEER, and we have a policy. We do policy work as well as codes. And so some of you who are here in local governments that are looking at revising your codes or updating, we are funded to guide you through that process, as well as give free training to your inspectors. So just wanted to highlight that. So I'm not very good about staying still, but so why does local government and energy reporting exist? And a side note, that's another reason why I'm excited to present, because I want to bring it back to energy reporting is just not data that goes into a report. This information helps our society, our community. And for me personally, I'm very affected by that. You see, what do you notice about this photo? Smog, poor air quality. Okay, so those of you who may or may not be affected, but personally, I'm affected by that smog and air quality because my daughter has asthma. So when we have those times of year in the summer, I have to ask my daughter to stay inside or we have asthma flares, right? So I am passionate about air quality, even though I work for an energy efficiency organization. So I'm going to highlight some of the connection pieces on why the local government energy reporting exists, because I like to mention it because a couple of reasons. One is those of you who are just focused on energy management, sometimes it's good to create partners who also work in community health and air quality because they will support you in this work because this work also helps them. Um, I'm not going to go deep and read this, but the reasons why we do this is the pollutants and health effects. I've already highlighted my direct personal connection, but there's lead, ozone, sulfur dioxide, PM10, 10, and carbon monoxide. So with that, those of you who are in non-attainment and counties, this is a list. So if you're not familiar, if you are in that region, see if your county is there listed. Um, ozone has changed over time, right? And our rules from the federal government has changed over time. So it goes back and forth, but it's always good to check and also reach out to your air quality expert within your organization to kind of see how you can support them because they also have their own reporting, but your reporting will also help them. So I do want to go back to that aspect about society and air quality and the importance. So there's 7 million premature deaths annually linked to COPD, respiratory infections, asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer. And chronic exposure to pollutants reduces life expectancy and leads to excess mortality. I don't know how often you also kind of talk to other people in other departments, but there's a huge amount of social links. And so there's also great opportunity for grants and partnerships in that aspect. If you're working on certain projects with EVs or some stronger projects that deal with transportation, this is a great way that you can use this information to have some potential collaborations and partnerships within your organization. So here's some history and background about why you have to report. It is because of the Texas Administrative Code and Texas Health and Safety is 388.005. And there are links in our presentation. I'll take you directly to it. In 2001, Texas was actually pretty proactive and had good forethought. They introduced this requirement in the 77th legislative session, Senate Bill 5. It was established to reduce air emissions associated with electricity consumption in ozone attainment or near attainment counties. Then 2007, they then passed SB 12 that established for entities to establish a goal to reduce electric consumption by 5% out to 2011. And then in 2011, they revisited and they're like, okay, we still need to continue to push this forward, right? So is Senate Bill 898 that was a continuance of establishing an energy reduction goal out to 2021. Well, we all know we are in 2025. And so in 2019, they passed it to continue the reduction goal. And currently with the current legislator, they are revisiting this and they're pushing to continue that establishment of a 5% reduction rate goal. So farther out. And right now, SPEER is watching that and supporting that. Yeah. That is a wonderful question. So this here administrative act and requirement does not have a stick, but having conversations with the State Energy Conservation Office with the director, he said this is highly influential to demonstrate that you have followed through with this. So they do look at that and make sure that you've been reporting. So, and Alyssa, I saw that you shook your head. Do you have any comment on a? Oh, okay. I know. Yeah, it is. It is frustrating. There's not a stick, but there are several carrots, and I will talk about the carrots and following through with the reporting. Is there any other questions? Okay. I think it's great to kind of give background and also demonstrating the state of Texas and how interested they are in this aspect with electricity. And I am going to keep on going because we have a break coming up. So I'm going to ask the question because I'm very much a visual person. What do you all notice about the state of Texas and where the non-attainment counties are? Urban, yes. High population. Anything else? If I was to overlay where our major electric providers are and the generation of electricity, you would say that it's in the same regions. So that's something to think about. If the nerd in you ever wants to do that, it's kind of cool to see. But yes, it's where the 70% of the Texas population lives. And so it's also directly related, right, to all of our social aspects and the medical aspects that we need to kind of look at as well for air quality. So I've already talked about the 5% reduction. It's going to be utilizing your energy consumption in 2019. So they want you to reduce your energy consumption starting from 2019 by 5%. And we'll get into that because it gets a little confusing, right? I'm sure a lot of you have maybe added new facilities since then. Things looked a lot different because of COVID. With our energy consumption. Unfortunately, some of us have increased our energy consumption, not even if you didn't add new facilities, but just changes. So here's I want to talk a little bit about the impacts of your data and where does it go after you submit it. So what happens is it all goes to the State Energy Conservation Office. Those forms are then reviewed. It's provided to the Texas A&M Energy Systems Laboratory. They then sit there and look at the data, right? And not all data is perfect, so they examine it, do an analysis, see what they can utilize, who they're going to still use, because there's sometimes information that doesn't quite make sense that it's reported, unfortunately. And then what they'll do is they'll create estimates for the total NOx reductions and submit it to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ. And then TCEQ utilizes the information for the Texas Emissions Reduction Plan, for your TERP plan, biennial report to the Texas Legislature. And then from there, that information is utilized for legislation or review about impact and further rules. Any questions about that? Okay. So here we talk about impacts for local governments. So here is the carrots because there's not a whole lot of sticks. And that's once you have your information, if you don't ever look, you won't know, right? So the data tells a story that's really important. It helps you effectively manage energy consumption informed by data collection. Honestly, it helps your budgets. So if you know what your consumption is, then you can also say, okay, maybe we don't get our reduction by 5%. You can already state, hey, this is what we'll really need to forecast for the next year for our energy consumption. But it also helps you forecast your needs for recommissioning. And we'll be having a great presentation about that this afternoon. Also, the ability to measure performance among peer entities using the SECO's energy consumption reporting dashboard, which I'll showcase a little bit later. I don't know about you, but it's horrible to compare, but it's also nice too. So if you're a city in Louisville and you're going to go look for a different city that resembles you, and you want to look at, okay, how many buildings do they have? What electricity consumption are they doing? Do they have windmills? Do they have any renewable energy? You will have all that access to that data through the dashboard. So you can, whenever you're trying to push something forward, you can say, look, we're using more energy than the city of Louisville. They have the same number of buildings. They mirror us quite a bit, even though we're in an individual city. But there must be something we can do. Sorry about that. So also identify opportunities for energy efficiency projects, and then pursue no-cost technical assistance and resources through SECO to accomplish energy efficiency projects. And I'll talk more about that later. Actually, Benjamin will be. So here's some statistics. So the number of Texas entities who submitted a local government energy report. As you can see, there's some influxes of who reports from year to year. It was a little bit lower during COVID, and also there's been a lot of changes in staff, which you guys all know. So we're working on getting the word out. So please share with your peers that there's this report that needs to be submitted. The composition of who does report is mainly local governments, cities, but there's some state agencies. The lowest amount I would love to see more of are higher education, and that's 7%, and then counties. I would love to increase that quite a bit. I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to invite Benjamin to talk a little bit about some resources before we get into the nitty-gritty of reporting and the resources for that.
All right. Thank you, Sean. I want to start with a confession. I'm not a licensed engineer with 25 years of energy auditing experience. Thankfully, our office contracts with energy auditors who do have that experience. And those are the resources I'll talk about today. So we offer 2 services at no cost to local governments, and it's just a matter of applying online through one-page PDFs that you email to a SECO help email. The first one is a preliminary energy assessment. This is essentially an investment grade audit. For those of you familiar with ASHRAE audits, this is kind of like an ASHRAE 1.5 audit. It's not maybe as in-depth as a level 2, but it's a little bit more than a level 1 audit. The process is we assign the local government who applied with one of our engineering firms. Y'all will send over your utility bills so that they can get some baseline data, and then they'll come out and conduct a site visit, put together a report, and present it and share it for however you'd like to use it. Our other service that we provide through our engineers is a technical assistance report. This is different from a preliminary energy assessment because this is a little bit more tailored to maybe what the local government has in mind already. So let's say you wanted to revamp your HVAC control system or your water's control system, and you had a specific project in mind, but you just needed the technical assistance to get it done or to conceptualize and plan it. This would be the form that you would apply with, and this would be the service that you would get through our office. As you can see, the forms look very similar. They're very similar. Yes, Sean. I think that is a question that the applicants, that's for the applicants. We get the completed forms, and if we see a signature, that's kind of, we reach out, and that's good for us. We'll work with whoever applies for our program. And so whether or not there's any kind of process on their end, that's something that they'll address. But again, I want to touch on the fact that the difference between these services is really about the needs of the local government itself. So the PEA is maybe for those who don't exactly have a project in mind. They just know they want to reduce energy consumption or demand. They'll say, you know, they'll apply, and our engineers will come out and they'll identify utility cost reduction measures. So they can present essentially some measures that the local government could implement. Whereas the TA report, that's more for if they have a project in mind that they know will reduce energy and they just want some technical expertise on that. And so great, we have the PEA and the TA options. That's awesome. But how are we going to fund these projects? And that's where we come to the Lone Star Revolving Loan Program. It's really SECO's kind of flagship program. We release a notice of loan fund availability every year, essentially. This year is pretty special because it's late. We haven't released it yet. And that's because it was incredibly popular this past year. I think a lot of public entities, local governments saw how low the interest rate was, what all they could do with it. The funding got eaten up pretty quickly. And because it's a revolving loan fund, we have to wait for it to come back before we can release it again. So it's an open enrollment system. Once we release it, public entities are welcome to apply with a project in mind. There's some specifics here. We have some guidelines and some requirements that need to be met. So every project, the payback period has to be 15 years or less. That just ensures on our end that the funding that we're using will actually go to an energy reducing project. And it helps the applicant and the borrower because the funding that they save from their energy reduction goes to pay back the loan. We have a 2.5% loan interest rate for regular, quote unquote, regular Lone Star loans. That's going to be $6 million maximum for one loan. And usually we haven't had to limit it to one loan per applicant, but again, the popularity, we've had to kind of change it up for this new release that's mere weeks away. You'll notice that there's a lower interest rate on what's called ARA funds and a higher loan maximum and 2 loans. But the catch is that there's more reporting requirements. So that's, yeah, kind of evens them out. Again, I wish I could say it's out right now and go apply for it today, but it's not. It will be soon. And what I've been telling lots of people for the past few months is just to keep checking our website because we anticipate it to be very popular again this year. And if you notice it released, we had strongly advise y'all to just go ahead and apply. Here's a QR code. Again, this is just a little bit more on that. The funding opportunities webpage, that's where we'll release it. It's on our website. You can sign up using the QR code for email notifications when we update our website. I've got my contact information right there. So please feel free to email me or give me a call with anything SECO related. And I think I'll give it back to Sean. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Benjamin. We're going to push this 5-minute break to, was it 10:55? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to keep on going. Before I start the walkthrough on the actual reporting, I first want to show you some resources. So SPEER put together a frequent asked questions guide. It's on our website. So if you go to eepartnership.org, you can check it out. And let me see if I can just go straight to the hyperlink to show it to you. Oh, that's great. It worked. Okay, so our FAQ guide right here, it has general reporting questions you might have come up. What is required to be reported? It'll tell you exactly which sections to have ready to be reported. There's also another question is, how can I access my local government and state agency energy reports from previous years? We have the hyperlink straight to the SECO's website and the dashboard, and then also some contacts if you need some technical assistance. SPEER is funded by the State Energy Conservation Office to provide technical assistance to all agencies throughout the state of Texas, as well as the North Central Texas Council of Government. They're funded for the North Central region. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. So this guide's pretty helpful as well with going through each section and answering those questions as well. So I just wanted to highlight that. Also on our website, we have an Excel spreadsheet reporting guide already established for you. This is really helpful for those of you who are just now starting to put together your report, but also it's helpful for if you put together your information in a different way. Everyone's brain works differently. This is helpful to put the information in and save for the next year. Some of us might just get a job as a sustainability director at Volcano National Park in Hawaii. When you take that job, we need to leave something so your colleagues have something to look at, so they are able to report. And this guide is really helpful because it gives them a simple outline on what to do, and they won't feel overwhelmed on looking at your original spreadsheet, because we all know we work at things differently. So this is pretty helpful. It has tabs for each section of the report. Again, there's only certain sections that you're required to report on, so you can highlight those. It also has a tab where you can put all the data from the buildings that you have. Travis County had 47 different buildings, right? And those of you who may work in facilities also understand some people call the building the facilities management building, and other people call it, FMD. And so whenever you start going into the data, you'll find out that those buildings have different names. Or sometimes you'll find that someone entered in the building's address differently than it actually is. So this is when you go into the dirty aspect of data, and this is really helpful because you can put the clean information here. Does anybody have questions about that? Okay. And then also I want to highlight the SECO's website. So the State Energy Conservation Office website, they have the code written out for you. It's amazing because you can copy and paste that into your email when you reach out to the auditor's office for your data. So whenever you're asking them those questions, then you can also say, this is required by the state, and this is the reason why. And so I am not just asking you because I have a side project. This is required. Please help me. But also whenever you want to look at what was reported previous years, you can look at the SECO dashboard. And I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough for that because I have 5 minutes. So here we go. So the dashboard is named a dashboard, but it's actually really a database. It has all the information for whoever reported in the state of Texas. Okay. So you can go through, and if you wanted to see what did it look like in 2019 for my agency, You just click there and select the year. And I know that some of you are like, oh, this is easy peasy. Please don't walk me through this, but we'll go on a break really soon. And then you see who all has reported in 2019. I will say as well as that SECO transferred to this online platform. They transferred to this about 2018 and 2019. So uploading this information was around that time period. So we're going to go ahead and select the city of Beasley because it's on the top. And we have here the city of Beasley, and we see what county it's in and all that great information, the contact name. Well, you want the data, right? So you could also just not even, then you can select the city. And then what's important, and I want to highlight, is the box right here, show data table, because it's not always intuitive. So now you have all the data for City of Beasley. Then this is what's important, because you go to this really small little icon. This is where you can download your data and send it to Excel. Okay. And then you can download the file. All right. I wanted to showcase that because sometimes you can't find it if you get really focused and you're like, I want to find the data. Oh, I have to go to that small icon. What I also think is great is that we can also go back to doing some searches for the entity. And then you can choose, okay, let's see what we're doing in 2023. You can see who all's reported in 2023. Yay, gold stars for NCTCOG and SPEER. We're doing a great job. There's so many more agencies there. Here is where you can have fun as well, because you can look up that other agency that's like your sister or your cousin and find out what they're doing and download their data and what they've reported. Or you can showcase that, hey, we're reporting, but this other university isn't. So you can showcase that as well. Or unfortunately, and this has happened in the past where I've had a local government reach out to me and, hey, Sean, I need some help. Susan told me she reported last year. Well, this is where we go in. I'm like, oh, I'll help you. Let's see what Susan reported. And then we find out that Susan actually didn't submit her data to the State Energy Conservation Office. And so that's when we have to kind of look at everything fresh and see where we are. Okay, any questions about those resources with the dashboard or our FAQ page? Again, all this information is free, easy to find for you guys. And then one more thing is, since we're here, but I'll go back to the PowerPoint slide. The reporting form. So it's on the State Energy Conservation Office website. It's this button right here, and we're not going to go straight into it because I'll go ahead and give you guys extra minutes for our break before we go into the walkthrough. But I do want to state that with the reporting form, they're using a SurveyMonkey as the platform to take in your data. And the reason why I include a walkthrough in this training is because SurveyMonkey is not gracious. If you start it, you have to finish it, or you're going to have to create a new form. So with this, that's why we've incorporated this. That's why I have the Excel spreadsheet, because it's going to be where you sit down, you have everything with you, your coffee, you've had your bathroom break, you have all your data in front of you, and when you're ready to submit, you'll be sitting there for 15 or 20 minutes, but I know about what it's like to work in local government. You know, Bob might come in with a question, or you might get a phone call. Just being mindful that you're going to have to set aside time and space to submit this, and know that sometimes the form times out. So if you all of a sudden have to take a break, realize you're going to have to step away and you'll have to resubmit the form. So I just want to make that understood, that that's the platform they've used. I've encouraged them to maybe explore other platforms, but at this time, this is what they'll continue to use. And on that note, we'll go ahead and do our 5-minute break, and we'll start walking on through the reporting guide. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started again. So I hope that you got some coffee and you're ready to walk through this. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible with data. But before I actually get started, we had a great comment made regarding my question on who can sign this agreement to take advantage of this great free resource from the State Energy Conservation Office. And I am going to revert to Susan. Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah, this is a throwback from my days at the city of Dallas. So under state law, the person that is signatory to permits, reporting, anything quasi-regulatory is the top ranked executive in your particular firm. A lot of cities, it's the mayor. Depending on your charter, it can be the city manager, but it's basically somebody pretty far up the food chain that signs off on it. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
So I guess a follow-up question then, for a county, does that mean that it would have to go to the commissioner's court to be approved?
Likely, it would be the judge in that situation, would be the person that would be submitting.
And then within a university environment?
Again, top ranking executive. Now, you know, and I know the top ranking executives typically don't have time for permits and reporting and such. And so a lot of times there's a food chain of approvals that happens before they sign off on it.
Right. Thank you. And then also, that just reminds me, please be sure to push the button in front of you if you have a microphone, because it's being recorded. So would you mind repeating that for us?
Not using these. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my add-on to that was that depending on the organization, they could also have a policy that delegates that executive authority to somebody else within the organization, also high ranking. For example, some department directors can sign off on EPA reports, also, contracts, etc. So it could be as body specific as that.
Thank you for adding that. All right, so here we go. So the local government reporting form. I'll show you what you'll see when you click on submit form, but when it's separated into sections. And so the platform of SurveyMonkey, the first section is going to be reporting entity information. Then you will fill it out, and then you hit that tab next. So it's separated by those sections, so 1 through 9. And to getting started, again, we have a reporting help guide, we have the FAQ guide, and then we also have that Excel spreadsheet you can utilize. But before getting started, we all know that you kind of need to make a data checklist, okay? You need to know your data sources, keep your data organized, consistent, and tidy, just not for yourself, but also for that person who may take over that responsibility. I know that I've talked to several honestly, in some small towns, a city council member is filling out the energy reporting form. Once they've done it, they pass it on maybe to an administrator. So there are times where you may do it yourself and you delegate. And then also, whenever you're doing this work, always prep for the next year. Okay. So I'm going to go back to creating a data checklist. When I worked at Travis County, of course, part of my job was looking at all the energy consumption for that agency. Travis County is, the 5th largest county in the state of Texas, and we also had several buildings. When you're looking at what buildings to include, it's the buildings that have air-conditioned spaces, right? So we had a park system of 30 parks. Did I include our maintenance buildings that have that one office to support the supervisor at that park? I honestly didn't. No, I didn't include that. But you do have to look at if you have your fleet services and you have a larger space for all the staff and the training rooms, you do include that space. But you're going to have to look at it because I also know that you have maybe half the facility is bays for your vehicles to be worked on, and that's not air conditioned. I mean, that would be lovely if they were, but it's not air conditioned, so you don't include that. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, for your data, so besides looking at what buildings to include, make a comment for whoever your future self will be so you can remember to, oh, why didn't I include this building? Oh, yeah, it's not fully air conditioned. The other aspect to think about with your data checklist is that some of you have the amazing position where you have access to all your energy data. Some of you do not. So who do you talk to on getting access? So in the region in Travis County, there were times where I was given access to our utility provider, and there were times where it was a little bit more difficult. So some of you who are directly the energy manager, yes, this will be easy for you. For those of you who aren't the energy manager and your administrator doing the work, your friend is actually going to be in the auditor's office at times. The people who pay for those invoices that come in, the people who pay for the energy bills. I was fortunate that I made friends with an auditor, and we created a program so that we could run a report to pull all the energy data for those buildings. I don't know if all of you guys are able to be so fortunate, but I will say it's a great way to connect and get the data that you need, is just kind of explore and see who's in the auditor's office who will be able to help you. I also used a lot of template emails to send out to different people, because sometimes you send that request to someone and then Susan B. Anthony's like, no, I'm not the right contact. Or they say, oh, no, you got to get approval from the executor. So I would definitely, wherever you are in your agency, think through your process, realize who you have to get the approvals from, and include them in those conversations, right? So some of you, this would be fairly easy to submit, and those of you, you may have some different levels in your process. So be thinking about that in your checklist of, okay, who do I have to get approvals from first to even get to this point of getting your data? And then also with receiving your data, once you finally get it, is the data in a way that you can actually look at it? So we'll talk a little bit about that further. So actually noting your data sources. With your data sources, in Travis County, we had 3 different utility providers. In our region, for our facilities, we had Austin Energy, and then we also had Padronales Energy Co-op, and then I believe we also had Atmos. No, it wasn't Atmos, but it was one other energy provider in that region. Those of you who don't have several different energy providers, you're very lucky. But those of you who do, kind of think about who your data sources are, and then also create a good relationship with the person with that agency, because there's going to be some conversations at times where you have to have a conversation about like, well, I have this data. It looks a little unusual, because you're going to start, those of you who already do this already, you know that you'll find outliers. And so you can have a conversation directly with your utility about like why there may have been an outlier, because talking to your auditor's office or who pays the bill, they're not always going to know. So also have as an energy manager, I know that you guys probably already have a great relationship with your facilities, your building managers, but and maybe they don't take great notes, but sometimes you might find that they had an air conditioning unit running at 55 in August for 3 weeks, and you didn't find out about it until much later because somebody in the office got too hot. So those outliers will be helpful to find out more information. So, and then keeping your data organized and tidy. It's just good housekeeping, but also if you're in a space like all of us are, sometimes you have to stop doing this work, right? So you gather the data, you send out all your emails, and then you get another project or a deliverable and timeline that takes precedence, right? Because we're going to start now on gathering our data, but this isn't due until March 3rd. So you're going to have something else pop in. So really keep it organized for yourself, but also take notes. And then prepping for next year, you're going to find out that as you go through this information, you're going to say, oh my gosh, if I had only done it this way, or I didn't realize that Omir was the best contact for me. So prepping yourself, going, hey, Omir, like next year, we will be asking for this information. Can we organize it in a different way? And that's how I created my relationship with the auditor's office, is through all the work that we went through one year so we could do our reporting. She was just like, Sean, this is too much. Let's figure out a way we can do it differently. It did. It took us a year to create the program so it could work well. So background information. I had mentioned before that sometimes a city council member submits the information. What you would do here is you're going to put in the best contact. If you're the city council member, but you don't want to be contacted about reporting, you have too much going on, you're going to ask your admin. You're going to put your admin's information in here. So when you're thinking about next year, reporting for your contact information, this is where you're going to say, okay, I'll delegate it to this person. Or another thing is you could put contact information, the contact name, but the email address, it could be a general contact address. If you go through turnover, it is best to use a general contact. At SPEER, we have cities at EE partnership. And the reason why I encourage that is that way, whenever someone sees your data and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed by you with your 10% reduction, and they want to ask you questions, they can email that general contact, but have that name, and that email will get to you, because hopefully in that year, maybe you got those 2 promotions. So, this is something to be thoughtful of, is that also when you're putting your background information to be also evergreen in some aspects. It doesn't happen often, but also the A&M lab, they'll reach out to you if they have questions about your data. So those are things to kind of think about. Who will be the contact? What is the best way for maybe A&M to get a hold of you? Or if anybody sees our information and has further questions, how they're going to contact me. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to put in Bob Seeger, who is the division director, as a contact information. Do you all have any questions about that? Okay. So reduction goal. Things to be prepared with is just understanding after you have all your data together, did you all establish a reduction goal? I will say that I look at this every year, and there's not too many agencies who have established a reduction goal. So please establish a reduction goal. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. I'll use also the city of Denton as an example throughout this presentation. A goal can take several forms. It could say that we submitted a preliminary energy assessment form. And so we're working towards utilizing SECO's resources so we can reduce. It could also be that we went towards a reduction goal by having a resolution or pushing forward an energy plan or a policy. So it also changes with each update with the Senate bill to reflect the time and date, but right now it's still 2019 for your reduction goal. So reduction goals can look very different, but right here, just saying yes or no. And a lot of times I would say that if you established a reduction goal, it doesn't necessarily have to be something written. Those of you, how many of you all are working right now on doing a lighting upgrade in your facility? Oh, great job, University of Dallas. Okay. Let me ask a different question. Is there anyone really kind of doing an inventory or I say lighting upgrades because those are like the low-hanging fruit. Any other energy efficiency projects in your facility? Okay, that's great. So those of you who raised your hand, you can state, instead of having something written where you have it been already approved, you could say, we have implemented these two things. So I say that we have a reduction goal because you're implementing energy efficiency. And then there's a lot of space for comments. And so as you're going through the form, you can add a comment. I would say to write out your comments beforehand again, because this is a SurveyMonkey form. So write your comments as you're thinking about it and going, oh, we have done this and this and this. What I find pretty often is that there's a lot of agencies who are working towards energy efficiency. They just don't realize it until you take a step back and think about it. So reporting period. The reporting period for local governments, universities, state agencies, cities, and counties is January 1st to December 31st. I know that this does not align with your fiscal year. It is very frustrating. So I've had conversations about this. It used to be where the State Energy Conservation Office could say, oh yeah, you could submit any time period. It was a couple of years ago. Come to find out, Texas A&M was throwing out the data from some agencies because it didn't align with the calendar year. So that's disappointing after you as a local government spent all that time and effort. So it's important to have it aligned with the calendar year because that's also how the data is like the end use, right? Is for the TERP plan, and that's how they push those things forward. So again, I know it's frustrated. It's not aligned with the fiscal year and things get kind of a little bit messy whenever you're looking at October and you're having to wait for that data. I also understand that it takes a while to start getting that data. Usually, because it's aligned with fiscal year and the way billing works and invoicing, you're really not going to be able to look at the bottom line and have your good data until the beginning of February, right? So that gives you a month to look at your data. On that note, SECO is really not asking for much, and so we'll go into that. So let me, before I go into that, so again, I want to highlight those 3 bullets. So reporting period, again, January 1st to 31st. As stated, your January data or December data may overlap into other months. The current practice is split months based on the meter read date, usually on the 15th. Okay. So section 4, consumption data. And these examples right here in this table was provided by the City of Denton. So thank you, City of Denton. There was a great colleague there that did a lot of great work in utilizing this data to further initiatives in the City of Denton. So here's a checklist. It helps in this section is having the number of buildings, building square footage, total kilowatts, number of traffic lights, number of street lights. These are all the kind of questions they ask. Again, not all of them are required to have information for. So this is your first time to submit information. I would just look at, square foot, so building square footage, and then the number of buildings. That is the biggest, that's your low-hanging fruit right there. That's all you really need to report. That's all that's required. The other aspects are items that are optional. So again, know your data sources. Organize starts with data collected. Create an SB 241 field if possible, because, right, there are other reports that you have to provide annually. So utilize this process to do several reports at one time. And then get informed on account changes. So if you all are updating accounts, or if there's any account changes at all, to be informed about that. So you see here on the bottom part of the spreadsheet, you have the service street number, serve street, the name. The naming mechanism is really helpful if you're going to start working with like having your understanding your metering, and that's really helpful in the future. And then the description, department, location, and function. Those are all helpful information whenever you're kind of going through this process. And I probably mention it later in the presentation, but what I've seen is when people collect and your energy information and you have it lined out like this, very simple and clean, there's so much you can do with it. So the only way I saw that I could move change forward at Travis County was to demonstrate by data. And it was interesting, they didn't have an energy manager before we started demonstrating. Okay, well, here is our consumption of electricity. People notice. When you look at that consumption with the cost, the directors notice that, and they're like, what can we do? And that's when you start saying, oh, first let's do a resolution to maybe get an energy plan. Okay, now let's do a resolution so we can include in that energy plan an energy manager if you don't already have one. Oh, wait, yeah, let's also incorporate this and this and this. So it's a fantastic way by utilizing data and demonstrating your cost. I was working with Travis County Correctional Complex. They had no idea how much money they were using for energy consumption. When they started learning, guess what? They started doing and working on an energy services contract and moving that forward. So that was pretty exciting. Anyways, consumption data. So buildings, you can also ask risk management. They're a great resource, keeping the building codes in mind, which I already mentioned. And I know that all this is really kind of information that you probably know, but it's great to kind of go over one more time. Lighting, metered versus unmetered, owned or versus unowned. That is something that pretty often you don't know if you own the lighting. So sometimes you have to go through that process of unveiling who does own that lighting system. Water and wastewater. You may or may not have a treatment plant to report. You will have pumps and lift stations to include. And then also just kind of seeing there what is required. What is required is that star that you can't quite see because of the copy is light, but it's number of buildings, building square footage, total buildings, and then overall required total electricity consumption. So you see all those other boxes are not required. So if you don't have the information, just put in there NA.
Okay, hello. Oh, good morning. So I submitted last year and I believe I did it wrong. So in effort to correct my ways, I'm trying to get understanding here. Am I basing my building data and square footage data now using the same information that was submitted in 2019, or is it year to year reduction or is it solely from the 2019 year?
That's a good question. So the information I've gotten from the State Energy Conservation Office previously is that you look at what existed in 2019. For you as an agency, it's fruitful to look at everything, right? But it would be just what existed in 2019.
So
Got you. So to get clarification even further, so let's say a city like Frisco, we've added buildings since 2019. I would not include those buildings. I would take my baseline from 2019 of what the city had.
Correct. But
Okay.
again, there's lots of comment boxes. And so what I would put is that in this time period, we have added this number of buildings, and you can even, which is helpful for your staff, is to include what the actual square footage would be for 2024, and then your actual energy consumption for 2024, and a comment box.
Okay, perfect. I'll just make that distinction in those distinctions in the comment box so that the reviewer can see all of that. Thank you.
So just to be super, super clear, the only data that should be changing year to year is energy, is the consumption, is the numbers, not the square footage. Because I've also been reporting actual square footage as we have decommissioned or added new buildings.
Again, the way it's written is 2019
Got it.
comparison. And it's confusing.
Mhm.
And I've talked to the State Energy Conservation Office about it.
Mm.
But the way they responded was just what you're at 2019. It's incredibly hard to compare your 2019 consumption with 2024 if you've added new square footage and
Mhm.
demonstrating your consumption decrease.
Yeah.
How can you say that in 2019 you had 19 buildings? In 2024 you now have 25 buildings, and the your square footage, I don't know, maybe it like increased by 35%.
So one of the things I've been looking at for our city is taking a per square footage consumption, just for internal purposes, right? But I also too need to correct my data, so I'll probably be resubmitting.
So again, I recommend putting all the information for your buildings into your spreadsheet, but then just making note of these are the buildings we had. Maybe you highlight them, however you want to organize it. But these are the buildings we had in 2019, and so this is what we're going to utilize. And so you're able to look at 2019 and your reduction rate by 5%. I know that's frustrating, and how do we utilize that? But that's how it's written in the state code. I just had a thought about that. Those of you who are energy managers, you already know about energy unit intensity, right? The EUI. And so what you're talking about doing is really exciting. My face lit up. Looking at your buildings and looking at the energy unit intensity, where you break it down by square footage and energy consumption, is such an amazing opportunity to really push forward individual projects for specifically for each building. And you can really have a good analysis in pushing forward certain things. Because we all know each building has a different story. A medical examiner's office is going to use energy so much differently than a tax office. So it's a great way to really kind of demonstrate the building's performance, but also the building's function.
So one more question, follow-up question. Why 2019 as the baseline? Because we have data going back further that we've reported. So I'm just curious.
I have no idea.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't mind admitting that
It's okay.
I don't know.
2019 is what I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah, 2019 is, and good for you that you have data going past that.
Yeah.
I've actually reached out to try to get data that's past other years. And it's been difficult because it's in paper form and it hasn't been converted. All right, does anyone have any questions about section 4 before I move on?
Yes. I am from city of Fort Worth,
Oh, well, good.
and we have wastewater treatment plant, and we are renewable energy. We are producing energy from there, and we are producing biogas, and we are generating gas power from gas turbine, and we are using that power in our plant. But I find in your here that you said that renewable energy is optional, data is optional,
Yes.
but it has an impact on the. I believe that this has an impact. It should not be optional. Moreover, another thing is I want to say that we are using solar energy also, and that is also should be taken into account because it is directly related with the air quality, right? There is no air quality. So that is also, I have a question on that. Another thing I saw that you said that 5% consumption each year, that is, if we using in a building solar energy, so that is also considered in the 5% or no?
Yes, that is also considered. So if you have a building that in 2019 didn't have solar,
Yeah.
but then now in 2024 it does have solar and your energy consumption went down, that's great to demonstrate. And so that will be helpful in your energy report. But again, this doesn't have a stick to it. So it's what I'm saying is that's great. And you can demonstrate that very easily that you have had energy consumption decrease. And I will show you here in the form that where you can put all that information. And I agree with you. It has a direct connection with air quality.
Yeah.
So I will add this form is created by the State Energy Conservation Office, right? We know the climate of the state of Texas and our policymakers, but it is very exciting that they want to collect information regarding renewable energy. And we'll get that in a moment. So consumption data, also this aspect is not required, but they request it. So it's natural gas consumption and then also water usage. So again, talks about buildings and then asks for potable water supply, wastewater treatment plants and other, and then total natural gas consumption. So I'll share an embarrassing story with you with the first bullet. Check your units when you're working with natural gas. It's the worst when you don't. So it makes a difference. Because it's a different data set than electricity. You're going to be looking at it differently. A data storage tip, have at least one linking data field. So having the address. Those of you who are new to this, you can do some really great mapping in Excel. So you can do lookup mapping. So you can explore some different programs that will help you move this forward and do some connectivity. That's really helpful for like a summary tab. And then water usage, have a billing category versus usage category. All this information you're gathering, again, will be very helpful for other reporting requirements within your agency, but also for, I haven't mentioned it much, but with the Lone Star program, but also grants. You're able to have the information and tell your story when you're applying for grants and saying, this is our consumption, this is our goal to reduce, and this is how we want to do it. And you got all the information where you can tell your story from year to year as well. Okay, so here is where you made your statement. And Gold Star, City of Fort Worth, good for you, especially on generating energy through your water treatment facility. So this is where you can add all that information. And then I will be honest, I don't know what the word count is for additional comments. So that's something I'll have to explore. But renewable energy data, they're asking for solar, wind, biomass, geothermal. Anyone? Geothermal? Oh, okay. On-site summary, so the entity's energy footprint, and then a PPA summary. So looking at it, it's looking for solar, total quantity from on-site solar photovoltaics, total energy purchase from off-site sources. So those of you who are exploring sustainable purchasing contracting, which I love talking about, if you could work with your energy provider and they do purchase a green energy and you can have that incorporated in your contract, this is where you would add that information. So you could say, okay, we purchased, I don't know, 600,000 kilowatts of green energy. And then you can add that information and your additional comments. And then also wind. Anyone utilizing wind energy? Yeah. If we were in West Texas, maybe there would be a raised hand. So then you would add just total quantity generated and additional comments. So for those of you who don't, you could just say additional comments. It would be wonderful. We had more opportunities by our energy provider. I don't know. Section 6. This is really getting to the end of the reporting, and I'll talk more about opportunities. But at SECO resources. Oh, yes. Uh-huh. Well, it would under solar photovoltaic, and then on site would be the top. And then there's no, it's also asking if you have done any green purchasing. So offsite as well. So if you have any offsite opportunities, and then you can add further information and additional comments. So that you could talk about the percentage. If you have no idea how much it is, but with your contracting that it says that it's 5% is going to be green energy power, then you can just put that in your comment, say unknown, and then put in comment that you do have a green energy purchasing requirement, but you don't know totally what that is. Any other questions about that? Okay. So those of you who reported in the past, I'm going to ask the question of you. Have you ever been contacted with further information? Okay. Anyhow, so they asked this on this page, and they do require for you to click and select. I've tried not to, and it doesn't work. So in here, it asks if you are wanting to, what you're planning on doing, if you plan on doing a PIA, preliminary energy assessment, if it's planned, in progress, completed, ongoing, continuous, NA, or learning and interested in learning more. Evidently, from reading the room, if you're interested in learning more, then I would click on the link because I haven't reached out to most people. But then there's also the technical assistance for local governments and city efficiency leadership project. That's actually renamed, so I'll have to reach out to SECO, where actually it's the program that SPEER manages, and it's called the Community Energy Leadership Coalition, CLC. So we'll fix that. But if you're interested in learning more, I actually download the report and I reach out to you. So, or you can just take my card that's over at the front where you signed in, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And then also Lone Star financing. If you're interested in planned, in progress, completed, ongoing, continuous, NA, or interested in learning more. Okay. So here in the section 7 and 8, areas of improvement and progress. So here again is the example from Denton's following their upgrades, following their PIA, but you can put in here, and again, the comment section, I do not know what the word count is. So I would have, when you have everything lined out in front of you before you start this process, maybe have a short summary and the full thing. So, because I know that there's a lot that goes on with your building. So if you've done any physical upgrades, HVAC, insulation, any new building automated management systems, as well as policy and training. So if in 2024, you all have pushed forward a new energy plan included, or if you've gotten your energy plan draft,
include that as a policy of moving forward. Then trainings. So at Denton, they have incorporated into monthly safety training in the past. They've incorporated energy efficiency ideas. You could also work with your human resources department, and for onboarding, you can include some energy efficiency mechanisms and thought processes. So it could be that on onboarding, you can tell the person and share, hey, welcome to the city of Fort Worth. We love for you to have a good climate to work in, but here we do not allow your own personal heater. And so that's where you can also incorporate certain ideas with facilities. Or here we have a building automated system where we help with making sure your climate is nice. So if you are too warm, reach out to our facilities manager, and this is the contact information, and you can include that in your onboarding instead of Jennifer changing the thermostat herself down to 63. So those are ways to incorporate it, and so you can see there buildings with upgrades, utilizing the APIA, and electricity use went down 7.29%. That's amazing, honestly. And natural gas went down 13.64%. And then there is the EUI I had mentioned earlier. The per building, it went down 7.98%, so almost 8%. And the ECI, 17.77%. And I'm going to reach out to Garrett. Garrett, I'm not familiar with an acronym of ECI. What does that stand for? Thank you. So energy cost index went down 17.77%. So over here, we look at buildings with no change. And so that's a great comparison as well. So if you're trying to have a good proposal and conversation and you want to fund something, this is a great way to demonstrate that, right? Buildings with upgrades, buildings with no change. It's going to go up and also with a cost. Okay, and exemption request. So I get a lot of calls around March, the first week of March or right the last week of February. Hey, I didn't meet my goal. What do I do? And again, that's where I say use the comment section of the form. So this is where you have that conversation. Hi, in 2024, I lost 5 staff in my buildings department. We weren't really able to monitor the systems as well, but this is what we're going to be doing in the future. Or these are all the things that we've already done, including all the low-hanging fruit. Currently, we're examining other ways to get funding, but this is as far as we can go because we've already recommissioned, we already have done an evaluation, and we've also gotten training for our staff. This is all the stuff that we've done. There's also ways you can claim exemptions, and they are applicable after the report has been completed. So you can also request an exemption to reaching your goal. I would say I would err on not trying to go through that process of getting an exemption because that won't be fruitful for possibly any projects that you're working on in the future if you want to utilize the Lone Star loan and other potential aspects. What I'm saying is that if you go through the process through your chain of command and ask for exemption, it might not be fruitful for when you want to push forward a new HVAC system that's more efficient or pushing forward the LED because they can chain of command can then say, well, we have exemptions. Why do we want to push this forward? Okay, again, we have it's been printed by NCTCOG graciously. You can also have a paper copy of the frequently asked questions to take with you, or you can download it. And here are some other resources by NCTCOG on energy reporting. There's a case study from Tarrant Regional Water District. So an energy plan, I highly recommend once you've gone this process of gathering all your data, start looking at energy plans. And then there's lots of templates with SPEER and NCTCOG. And then there's a case study with the City of Louisville's energy consumption reduction. We also have a toolkit. I am so appreciative of NCTCOG and the work and the partnerships that we do together on furthering resources for communities. And the toolkit is one of them. Thank you guys for all that you do on that. And then there's also a white paper, the Texas mandated local government energy reduction goal. So you can look at their website as well. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, all right. Yes.
Yeah, I have seen SECO has given some technical assistance for any. So if I want to upgrade any equipment for energy efficiency, so what extent they can help up to design?
I will say that I don't know exactly all the aspects they do, but they, as Benjamin went through, there's two different forms. One with a preliminary energy assessment. So that one is really useful for also doing a metering audit and understanding those ghost meters. And then also they have a substantial report they provide you on low-hanging fruit and suggested changes you can do that require funding. And then when you look at that and go, oh, I want to do that project, they have that second form, right, Benjamin? That's really a further technical assistance. I don't know if they provide design, so let him answer.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It's the technical assistance is really a collaboration between the applicant and the engineering firm. So from my understanding, it's more so that they might approve designs or confirm the energy savings that you actually want by reviewing those designs. But again, it's a collaboration, and our firms kind of know the scope of work that they do, and they're really happy to work with you and provide you the technical assistance, all the technical assistance that they can provide. So I would say what it sounds like you're describing is more applicable for the technical assistance. And I would just say apply, and, communication will come, and y'all can figure out how best they could serve you.
Because your cost estimate, we require the total complete picture, like design, what will be the design, and based on that, the costing will be done, right? So if it is that kind of extent help is there, then it will be more fruitful. But if you don't say about the design aspect and all this thing, then we cannot do cost analysis properly, right? So if it is required to upgrade the equipment for energy efficiency, we need that kind of assistance also. So I just wanted to know from you that, do you give this type of service?
I would say, again, it just it depends on what kind of projects you're talking about, but I'm always inclined and leaning towards let's just try. And I believe they could provide the service. Again, it'll come down to complexity, and there's a lot of moving parts here, but there's no harm in applying. We reach out, the engineers reach out, and you guys talk about the project together.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I just want to close with this, and I know that we're over a few minutes, but the key takeaways and next steps is, again, it's due March 4th. I believe that's a Sunday, so I'll double check. The calendar year reporting period, January 1st to December 31st. Just remember, there's just a minimum required data. So reporting time frame, annual electricity consumption in kilowatt hours, and gross square footage of all entity-owned buildings and facilities that are air conditioned. And please check out the reporting dashboard if you get a chance. We have several resources. High level is, I will just say, please reach out to me. If you're a local government, become a part of the Community Energy Leadership Coalition. There's a lot that's gained from it. You also, through membership, get 10 free hours of technical assistance, and that would be working with me. And you also has a great networking opportunity. Garrett's participated quite a bit. We have these casual virtual coffee hours where if you have a project that you're moving forward, you can talk with other agencies and hear about what their experiences were as well. So again, there's a lot of resources. I'm not going to go through them, but we do have a YouTube channel with over 160 videos. And then also great training opportunities. Right now, we're putting together some training for local governments, but we also have the building operator certification training. It has demonstrated that you can save up to $10,000 per staff member and your building operations, as well as newsletters. And then this is over to you.
All right, this brings us to the end of the workshop. Just a couple last things here. When you sat down, there was a piece of paper. It's the evaluation for this workshop. We'd really appreciate it if you took the time before you left to just take a look at it and fill it out. And you can just leave it there and I'll pick them up when the workshop ends. It'll just help us know what topics you're interested in, what you thought of this workshop in particular, and help us improve in the future. And then just a reminder about the in-kind form. I've talked about it enough, I'm sure. Some contact information, which has, I'm sure, already been mentioned, but Sean's contact information is there, so is Benjamin's. We've also included Justin Gamboa, who works with SECO as well, and specifically the energy reporting side of it. So if you have any questions, you can email him directly as well. And then contacts for the NCTCOG staff here for both the transportation team and the environmental and development team as well are listed there. And then just a reminder, all of this will be sent out in an email as far as like the presentation and the webinar recording. Once we have that posted up on the Conserve North Texas website, you can reach it there as well. But this should go out either hopefully at the earliest later today or in the next few days. But with that, thank you again for being here. We'll have lunch at noon. Well, it's actually being set up now, but noon is when we were going to have it. If it gets set up sooner, great. If you have dietary restrictions, they'll be labeled on the box lunch itself. But by all means, to stick around, network, and get started with lunch shortly. For those of you that are leaving, thank you for being here. And we hope to see you at a future workshop or webinar. Thanks.